Hello, everyone. My name is Lucian. Most of you know me from Twitter as Triangle Investor. In today's edition of CEO and Market Expert Interviews, I'm happy to host a returning guest to my show, and that is Thomas Lamb, Myriad Uranium CEO. Thomas, welcome back.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Thanks.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too, Thomas. A lot has happened since you were last time in my show. We had a coup in Niger. You have transformed, or better to say, you are on the way to transform Myriad from a single asset explorer company to on one continent to a two-project company on two continents with advanced asset in Wyoming. So definitely you have been busy for the last couple of months. So Thomas, for starters, give us some details about the transaction between Myriad and Rush Rare Metals. How did it happen? And give us the overview of the project.
That sounds great. So Rush Rare Metals Corp is also a Canadian-listed junior explorer. They have their original property in Quebec called Boxy, B-O-X-I. And it's been their focus, and they acquired the Copper Mountain Uranium Project second, I suppose, and because they thought it would be a really useful second project and a good quality second project, but they didn't really understand it fully because they didn't have any data. It was just they bought a core group of claims off some Wyoming people. And that was going to be sort of the start of their Wyoming Copper Mountain project, but they were leaving that to second after they advanced their Boxy project. They didn't think much of it. This was a couple of years ago. Uranium was not in favor, particularly. Yeah. And I'll just mention their Boxy project, very interesting. High niobium grades and high uranium grades. It's in Quebec. I mentioned it because I'm interested in what they've got too. They're our partner now on this Wyoming project, and their Boxy project was an Areva project before Fukushima. I suggest people take a look at that. I think it's Rush Rare Metals, extremely interesting, and a bit of a sleeper kind of company that maybe you'll talk to them one day.
Yeah, definitely.
So, the coup happened, and we have close connections with Rush because it's a small world out there in junior mining, and I go way back with the CEO of Rush, Pete Smith.
Pete Smith, yeah,
and he's a really interesting, smart guy, etc. So the coup happened. Well, in fact, I mean, we're very close because Pete is the former CEO of Myriad from years ago, before I took over. So the connections are close. Well, there was a coup in Niger, as you know, made things highly uncertain there. Really unfortunate because we love our projects there. We're right up against, sorry to go off on the tangent here, but we love our projects there. We're right next to Global Atomics Dasa, Imararan, Africa's largest uranium deposit. So the coup was a blow. We decided that we should diversify and find a really strong project. We started talking to Rush, looked at their Copper Mountain project, and as we both of us started investigating and digging into the project, not just us but Rush, we realized, wait a second, this is more and more interesting the harder we look at it. So we cut a deal to earn up to 75% of it. That's per in the news releases, etc. The transaction has some upfront cash, call it 130,000 Canadian, and then we have payments to make at the 1 and the 2-year mark, plus spending requirements that add up to $5.5 million over 4 years, plus bonus payments at the end that are a little bit detailed. People can look them up in the if we have PEA, PFS, etc., and if we enter production, then there's a revenue split that's initially 50-50 for a while as a kind of a sweetener for Rush. at the end. So it's a very fair deal for both sides. This is we entered a letter of intent on, I think it was September 18th, and we started due diligence. And this is where it gets really interesting, especially interesting. So in the summer, Pete Smith, late summer, Pete was at the project in Wyoming in a truck on a back road. And, at the project, meeting people there is part of normal, what you do to look at the project, advance the project, et cetera. Rush had a 43101 and has a 43101 dating back to March 2023 that does not talk about much in terms of historical data. All it says is that there was a lot of activity at the project, around 2,000 drill holes historically. It was a past producer. The Arrowhead mine on the project produced 500,000 pounds of uranium in the 1950s and 60s. There are some other small uranium mines in the project area and various deposits, but step one has to be acquire old data, historical data, if you can. And then, the next sentence, more or less, is if you can't acquire historical data, then we're going to have to start a maiden drill program and explore as if you're just exploring a new project. Mm-hmm. Well, Pete's driving along the dirt road and he bumps into someone coming the other way, and it's a rancher, and the rancher invites Pete over for coffee and says, "Hey, we have some historic data. Would you like to take a look?"
Unbelievable.
Very nice story. A little bit of Indiana Jones mixed with some nice local Wyoming hospitality. Open the data. Very nice. 7 bins plus maps of data, full of old reports, management reports, technical reports. And mostly this is pre-internet. That's why, hard to find out much about the project if you Google it. Mostly 1970s data, maybe 1980, 81, 82, generated by Rocky Mountain Energy. That's a subsidiary, or was a subsidiary of Union Pacific, the big railway company, which had a branch called Union Pacific Energy. Yeah. They spent $74 million in 2023 dollars exploring and developing our project area. That is a huge amount of money. They drilled themselves. They say sources say about 1,850 drill holes. That's a lot. 900,000 feet of drilling, because they use feet down there. Some other owners maybe added another 150 drill holes. So, and the U.S. Department of Energy and some other government organizations. So about 2,000 drill holes on the property, 900,000 feet drilled by Rocky Mountain Energy. We start flipping through the data. Wait a second, there's a mine plan, a detailed mine plan for the area in the center of our license. Well, how interesting is that? Oh, they built a leach pad. Oh, they were about to start production. The main deposit plus one of the other deposits. Turns out there are 6 deposits in our claim area. We don't have 100% of all 6. Some of them just sort of go a little bit outside the claim area, but we have almost all of everything. So we see that Rocky Mountain in 1979 had planned to start mining at our license. They were going to they built a leach pad for heap leaching, and that's advanced work. And they'd run the economics, and it was going to be profitable. So how interesting is that? And that was in a different environment than we have today in terms of pricing. But then the 3 Mile Island accident happened, 1979, and 1980, 81, the SALT treaties, which you have to be my age or older to remember what those are. Those are the strategic arms limitation talks. So the US and Soviet Union started decommissioning warheads, and they pulled the uranium out, and they, fueled reactors with that. So price of uranium dropped, and they discontinued. In fact, production in the US, as everybody knows, really fell off a cliff, and that was it. And they rehabilitated the area and did not start mining, but they were about to. So, pretty interesting. They also explored, so they did most of the work in the central area that they had the mine plan for, because they were already so far down the track. But they had explored with drill holes and mapping and all sorts of other work, the other deposits at Copper Mountain. At the time, they thought there were 5, and we now sort of, if you expand your view, it's maybe 6 deposits, plus 3 historic mines. Some of these deposits have much higher grades.
Sorry, Thomas, and that is all on your property.
Yeah, so I have to be a little bit sensitive about this because of things that are happening. But yeah, so we have, if you pull up the news release, you'll see a map of, and I'm just doing that myself here, Copper Mountain Project area. You can see deposits identified. And one of them down to the bottom right is called the Gem deposit. And we have that too. So, you know, I guess it depends how you want to talk. Is the Arrowhead mine also a deposit? So it's a historic mine. It had, you know, it produced 500,000 pounds of uranium. Some of the old reports talk about there still being a lot of uranium there. And it was not a super high grade mine in itself, but where did that uranium come from? If you can sort of adjust your thinking about the geology there, yes, you can go to where the high, that's right, the high grade stuff might be just adjacent, you know, coming from some, you know, source. The ambient uranium in the granite around there is around 50 ppm. Well, for some of these mines, the cutoff was 100 ppm. So the background uranium there is already very high, and you know, that it was quite mobile, and lots of activity there, so that lots of uranium available to be mobilized and concentrated. And you know, the thinking is in these reports, and you know, we had apparently the best uranium geologists available at the time were working on this project. And subsequently, Neutron Energy was one of the owners, the last owner in around 2008 to 2011. They're now part of Encore Energy. Mm-hmm. So this was one of many assets that, of course, those are bigger companies. And this was, and then Fukushima hit. You know, they had a plan. We can see in their reports, they had a plan to, well, they actually didn't have our licenses really. They had properties to the south of us, the few little bits inside our project area, and their memos said, we need to acquire these deposits. This is Neutron Energy, 2008, 2009, 2010, internal memos. We need to acquire these properties and these deposits, the Arrowhead, Canning, you know, Gem, Hesitation, Fuller, etc. And we see these memos. Well, we're reading these and we're feeling pretty good about ourselves because we've got them. This is exactly what Neutron Energy wanted. So anywho, these memoranda, et cetera, talk about, okay, Canning has been explored thoroughly, but these other project areas, or sorry, other deposits within our project area have high grades. They have huge exploration potential. You know, these memoranda and technical reports are full of ideas for what could come next to find the high grade. And so we're flipping through this, and we're getting ourselves, you know, pretty excited about it. Now, the technical reports themselves contained resource estimates and reserve estimates and mineable reserve estimates, and these are sort of in order of being quite conservative, all the way down to being very conservative. And we don't use those terms now in 43-101, et cetera. So I have to caveat what I just said. Don't,
of course,
you know, your viewers need to look at the caveats in our, you know, these are historical resources. But they were calculated, the more conservative range is the sort of 15 to 30 million pounds. And this is just for, you know, focused areas of these deposits with a kind of a conservative view, which is actually the view that your viewers should take, by the way, is be conservative about these things. Historic resource estimates are, you know, you have to take them with a grain of salt.
Yeah, of course, you have to observe them carefully until they are retested and confirmed, of course.
That's right. But these were fantastic geologists, the best at the time. There was a lot of resources available to spend on the best advice, the best geologists for Union Pacific, et cetera. So when they obviously were spending a lot of money. So the quality of the work's very high. They also, Rocky Mountain Energy, in the reports we saw, we're thinking there's, up to 63, I think it's 63.8 million pounds is what is the number cited there. We've called that potential resource in there. We have to be conservative too when we talk about this, because it's historic and we don't want to, over promise, et cetera. But there's, that's how these things were, that's maybe the range of in these historic reports. As we put in the news release, that 63.8 number was just related to 2 out of the, at the time, 5.
Yeah. That caught my eye, really. It could be a giant. Of course, we are taking this with a grain of salt, and it has to be retested and confirmed. But 63.8 million pounds in 2 out of 5 deposits. That really caught my eye as a big thing. So please continue. I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, that's right. Exactly. Well, it's worth emphasizing. So, there are various technical things that are discussed in the news release. We can talk about how, they use these gamma probes instead of assaying every meter of core. They didn't drill a lot of core, actually. They just drilled holes and then put probes down, largely.
Yeah, that was an old school exploration back then. And I believe that with new technology, that you will successfully retest this thesis, so to say, in the future.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's the plan. We want to get our hands on a lot more data. There were hundreds of boxes of data generated by Rocky Mountain, and it's not exactly clear where they've ended up, but we're going to keep trying to find more. If we're able to find, we found about 200 out of the 2,000 drill logs. That's not in the news release, but they're so 10%.
10% only. Yeah.
We need to find a lot more. And especially depends which deposits they relate to, et cetera. We can start updating the resources to our own current resource estimates instead of them being historic. So theoretically, it's possible that we don't even have to drill or confirm ourselves, although we probably will want to drop some, uncap some holes and drop some probes and maybe do a little bit of work just to whatever the geologist decides, of course, in order to sign off on the resource estimates. But that's what's going on. It's very exciting. There's more. You probably saw caught in the news release. The exploration upside here is because of the potential to leverage all the new technology, new theories, new understanding, really. We may be able to find we took out, in my original draft, I wrote this as, there's lots of connections with Athabasca in terms of the geology and the potential, because you can find there are ways to look at it that make you think, wow, there could be some enormous deposits right here inside our property area. You just have to go have a different viewpoint than they did 50 years ago and 40 years ago. And but we took that out to be kind of, we didn't want to get everybody too excited and overpromise, and I still don't. But the point is that they did find high grade. They did find indicators that there are, you have to forgive me, I'm not a geologist myself.
Of course.
But the sources and the channels that are high grade and where the uranium could be a lot more abundant and of higher grade than what the historic resources show. And those are there to be discovered. The memoranda, especially the later stuff by Neutron Energy, 2008, 2009, 2010, those, the management memos and things are very excited and optimistic about the exploration potential. And so that's very interesting. We're going to talk about that in the future. But we do have our hopes up about exploration also. Another thing that we mentioned in there, a lot of so we weren't able to find the original reports relating to heap leach testing. We weren't able to, those original reports are not in our, or not many of them, and not the detailed ones. They're not in the 7 bins of data. But a lot of the reports referred to old reports, and they all said, you know, it's been established that this, you know, is very amenable to heap leach. We're not going to need a mill, et cetera, which is a big deal, of course, because there are really only a few mills around, and it's not clear that they'll take material, and et cetera, and you have to build your own. And so very nice if you're going to go the heap leach route. But beyond that, in situ recovery, of course, is the goal if you can achieve it. And there are reasons to be optimistic about heap leach. In situ. Got me. Reasons to be optimistic about in situ recovery. Our own experts, we have David Miller's on our technical committee. He's from Wyoming. He knows this property intimately. In the past, he's been in charge of companies that owned part of it years ago, and he's optimistic about heap leach. And these old memos and technical documents talk about how you know, there are reasons to be optimistic about in situ recovery. So that's something else too. So, yeah,
definitely. Thomas, I want to touch a little bit more on the acquiring costs. Basically, my question is how much in total, let's say at the current share price of Myriad, is this deal worth in money terms? For 50%, then you have an option to get 75%. But for this first 50%, how much is this deal worth?
You know, I haven't done the math for a little while here. Shall we add it up together?
Yeah, you have okay. You have cash payments $135,000 to Rush. Then you have to issue shares. You have expenditures. If you didn't do the math, never mind. It's all in the press release. But I figured that you maybe have the total amount. Never mind. Okay.
Yeah, well,
it's all in.
But you're right. I mean, it does add up to 135,000 in cash up front, 400,000 worth of shares. But those are staged, so hopefully we build value, and it's less dilutive each time.
Yeah.
You know, 1.5 million in spend in the first 2 years. And then 4 million in spend within 4 years of the effective date. So that's $5.5 million in spending to get to 75%.
In a 4-year period, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Once we have if we have a PEA or a PFS, a feasibility study or economic assessment, and those of course are wildly different things, but you know, we did both. We put both in there because it may be that we skip like a PEA and go straight to feasibility, for example. Yeah. And Rush, this was important to them, so we'll issue them 2.5 million shares. $2.5 million worth of shares to Rush if we're at that stage.
Yeah.
So
you also have a deal. So you also have a deal with Rush when this project comes into production, and like you said at the beginning, and this deal says that you will share 50-50 pounds from the ground extracted, but in which time frame?
So once we enter production,
yes,
the first $50 million in net profit, and so this will have to be clarified in the future as we get closer, which we don't view as a problem because both parties will be interested in coming to an understanding of exactly what this means. But the first $50 million in net profit is split 50-50 effectively. So we'll have a 75% ownership interest, but net profit from production, the first 50 million is split 50-50. So it's that's you know, an important part of the deal. That's that enabled us to get, and you can see, I mean, if you do the math on the value of the I mean, at the high end potential, but still, this is without additional exploration, which could add lots of much higher grade, a lot more pounds, et cetera. That could, we could have a really nice big project on our hands here. But if you do the math, even on say 60 million pounds, if prices are as high as they are and getting higher, in order to get a really nice upfront deal with Rush, which I think we've done a very nice deal for Myriad in that respect. The upfront is really nice in terms of entry cost and enabling us to get a really good position. We had to sweeten the back end to make the deal work for both parties, and so it works out really well for both. I mean, everybody's going to make a lot of money if there's all this uranium there, and we can sell it. So that's
definitely, Thomas. You were there on the property. I saw the photos from your site visit. Can you tell me more about the location and infrastructure on the property? How is the terrain there? Is there any nearby communities? Tell me, please tell me more.
From my point of view, it's right in the center of Wyoming, which is a absolutely beautiful state. Yellowstone Park and canyons and rivers and everything. It's just gorgeous. So we're near a town called Riverton. I believe we're a bit north of there. You're in Riverton. It's a nice town. You drive about 30 minutes and you're on a nice 2-lane highway. You go off the highway, pull off the highway into rolling ranch land, and you look ahead, and there's these low-lying mountains. You go towards them. They're kind of small mountains, and you just the land starts to get a little more undulating. You're in the foothills, and that's where our property starts. It's absolutely beautiful. There are a few old, 150, 100-year-old ranch homes that have, the old families that have been there for generations. They have some cattle, a little bit here and there. Their properties, and then the terrain gets into what you'd really call foothills, and that is our project area, and it goes down to effectively the main road. Very convenient if you're mining. I mean, you're not in the mountains, and you're not in the low-lying areas right next to a road or culture, as we call it, where there's a community you have to bother. There's nothing around us other than, every few miles another ranch home, and my understanding is they're very happy to have us there because it helps them too. They can earn some revenue. We have to acquire rights to do work and extract, etc. So, and of course, Wyoming is an extremely uranium positive state.
Yes.
And politically, locally, statewide, and then the United States, of course, and actually, Wyoming Senator John Barrasso is leading the, America nuclear/uranium independence movement, and lots of support. So that's what it looks like. It's absolutely beautiful there. They do get snow in the middle of winter, as you've seen in the movies, etc. And so, you have to decide whether you're going to do work in the winter. Maybe you take a few months off. Very nice spot. That's it.
Yeah. Thomas, do you know, is there any other mining companies operating near Copper Mountain, near your property?
So I don't know how far away these projects are. I do know that I think it's called UR Energy. Cameco has a project, and there are various other ISR projects that are not too far away. A lot of the
companies
are not too far away. Right around us, within a few kilometers or miles, I don't think so. Now I could be mistaken about that, though. I just don't see them on our maps that we've generated. Yeah.
Okay. Do you see any similarities between your property and those owned by, let's say, Strathmore Plus Uranium run by that? You heard of them. You know what kind of land do they have? Do you see similarities?
Well, they have, I think, so that's a good comp. I think that, it's hard to find comps because it's such a small community of uranium companies, even worldwide, even though it's growing. But Strathmore is probably our main comp. They have, I think it's called their Night Owl project, which is, actually, so, that's an interesting comparison. They've taken so compare with us. We have 900,000 feet of drilling, 2,000 drill holes, 3 historic uranium mines, 1 Arrowhead produced 500,000 pounds of uranium. Whereas their Night Owl project, it is a historic producer. They had, I forget what the name of the mine was, but they produced, but they call it a historic producer. It's featured on their website. They don't get into a lot of detail about it, but it produced about 200,000 pounds of uranium. Contrast that with ours, which produced about 500,000. And there's a lot more uranium at our mine, according to the historic documents. Viewers, when I say something like that, refer to the caveats and et cetera about it, this all being historic information and not confirmed, et cetera. But it's in the documents. So that would be a way to compare the two projects. And they've taken 4 samples that are on their website anyway, relating to the Night Owl project. So, that's the first project of their website, Strathmore, Night Owl. They have a historic mine. It's produced 200,000 pounds versus our 500,000. And according to their website, it features just the 4 samples they've taken from the project, which have nice grades. I don't know exactly what they are, if they're rock chips or something that the nature of those samples exactly, but I've seen the grades. It's 4 samples with nice grades, so that's interesting. But contrast that with ours versus that project. We have a lot going on.
Yeah,
millions and millions of pounds of historic resource.
Yeah,
tens of millions. Yeah.
Definitely. Thomas, I know it's early, but have you maybe done some due diligence on the drilling in Wyoming? Is there available contractors, and what is the drilling cost per meter in Wyoming, if you know?
There was a report that I read dating back to last year saying there's a fair amount of availability of drillers, and that the technical group that we were talking to gave us a quote. And they said that we think this quote is pretty accurate because we're actually supervising drilling by another company right now with the same drillers, and the cost is, I think it added up to about $40 a meter actually, US, which is extremely cheap.
Yeah.
And so, I'm going to have to go back to that because I'll have to circle back on it because that's my recollection, but that's extremely cheap, for diamond drill worldwide that I have experience with, right? We're all used to more in the $100 to $200 a meter range, depending on what's going on and how you have mobilization and other factors.
Yeah.
But it was quite cheap drilling. I mean, the towns are close. I guess they just move the unit. There are all these dirt roads, and the ground is. It depends on the ground too, and the type of drilling.
Yeah. And Thomas, you said, do you have any clue where could this additional data boxes could be at this moment? Where is it lost? Where are they? Do you have any clue?
We have clues.
Yeah, you have.
We have clues, and we're acquiring more. It's a funny thing. You get the word out a little, and somebody calls you and says, I know somebody who knows somebody who may know where the data is, and you just start working that way. We've talked to people, for example, who had the data 14 years ago. I knew who had the data 14 years ago. Well, you start there, and so we're working our way along.
So you have to play detective here.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, these historic reports are really neat. You look at them, and they say, I am the author of this technical report. It's 1991 or 1997 or something. These are, after Rocky Mountain. And they say, I am sitting here in it's almost like it's almost like they're saying, I am sitting here in a room with 250 boxes of data, and I'm trying to put together a technical report. and it's impossible with that much data, of course. But you can see, so maybe we can try to figure out, where is this author, and what did they do with all the 250 boxes of data after they were, had them in their office. Yeah.
So
we're working on it.
We could see more good news if you find this data, definitely. Okay.
Yeah, we're working on it, and it'll be great. Yeah, there's a lot more out there.
Okay, let's talk Niger, Thomas. You are now holding 80% interest in Niger properties. Before we touch on the project, please tell us, how is the political and economic situation there at the moment?
Okay, I would say it's highly uncertain, and especially in the south, near the border with Nigeria, it's difficult because ECOWAS, the regional political bloc, is trying to make life as hard as possible on the junta, or the group that took power. And they're doing that by limiting power, close the borders. So I think there's a lot of stress, and the banking system is restricted, et cetera. So I think it's very highly uncertain there right now, and how it's going to go is unclear. On the other hand, there is optimism amongst some people. I mean, we're doing this because we're optimistic type people. I guess your personality type has to be. I don't know what we are exactly, but you're in this business, and you're going to, complicated places looking for difficult to find things. So you're an optimist, and there are reasons to be optimistic. I mean, everybody wants the uranium to flow. It's critical for government. It's critical for the people. It's important for the world, United States, Europe, et cetera. So people are working on it, and behind the scenes, they're definitely working on it. The United States is Exelon, one of America's big utilities, biggest, I think it's Chicago-based. I mean, it's been getting uranium from Niger for 15 years, uninterrupted, and maybe it's getting interrupted now with the coup. But America's very keen on keeping the supply secure. So those are some comments. I'm very hopeful. I will say that in July, the end of July, I think when the coup happened, I was thinking 6 months, maybe things would sort of get sorted out. And I now think it'll be longer than that. But so there's that. I'd also say Global Atomic and GoviX are leading the way. They're so familiar with the country. They've been there through thick and thin, multiple changes of government. They know it very well. I'm a new entrant, or we are new there relatively. We have great partners locally.
Yeah.
But I really think, and I think you talk to Global Atomic and GoviX, or follow them and comment on them, et cetera.
I talked with them recently. I had Daniel in my show. We also talked about the situation, and he said that he's, like you, cautiously optimistic about the situation, and he believes that eventually it will unfold in a good way. But of course, in the short term, nobody knows. Thomas, but in the current government, is the current government supportive in advancing your projects? I mean, do you communicate regularly with them?
Yeah, we do. The minister has changed. The minister is now somebody that everybody's familiar with from 10 years ago, is my understanding, and well known.
Minister of Mines, you mean?
That's right, exactly. But the level below, the civil service, everybody below is the same people, and they're all administering the, trying to keep it all going, and very supportive, anxious to, they want everybody to stay and invest and advance the projects. It's really important to them. So yes, and the government needs revenue too. They need everybody to be there paying their renewal fees and doing work and keep people employed. That's really important too. So yeah, no, they're very supportive. That everything I hear is they're supportive and even anxious for us to be happy and get to work. Of course, it's difficult. Borders, banking,
yes.
sanctions. So we need all that to get sorted out.
Yeah, agreed. But what are your current activities right now in Niger? And my main question, can you resume doing business as usual beside the banking and the part that you just said? What are you currently doing from a corporate view over there?
We're fully paused at the moment. And we have, our teams, administration, they're there.
Yeah.
But we're fully paused. It's a little bit hard to move around. And with borders and banking and uncertainty and travel to and from, getting outside experts in and out, et cetera. It's better to pause for us, unlike the big companies there that are in the middle of developing mines and doing mining.
Yeah, they're in totally different position like you.
Yeah. And they're self-sufficient too, partly. They've got their own camps and airstrips and whatever. And they can do things. We rely on the country's infrastructure that is, so we have to pause for the moment. And then who knows? It's possible that we'll be able to get back to business sooner rather than later, but we have to wait for the moment. Yeah.
Okay, but you've done some exploration work during the summer. Do you have are there any conclusions drawn from the latest partially completed drone survey in Niger?
Yeah, so we had to, we did not complete the drone survey. We did a good part of it, about half of it, but then the coup, and we actually kept flying even after the coup for a little while, because we're in the middle of the, we're out there, we may as well extend. So we did about half of the drone survey, and we also did some AMT, and we do have the results back, but we haven't fully processed them. But we've sort of got to look at them, and they look good. They've confirmed some of the things we already suspected, which is the structures at surface and subsurface. Especially they connect really well with some seismic that Orano or Arriva shot a long time ago. I forget if it's 15 years ago or when they shot it, but it's very nice seismic data, which is expensive and hard to get, and we have it, and we're very happy. And it showed some faulting coming down from Dasa, and where it intersects with the fault that comes down from Imararan. And we're at the intersection of those two faults, so the Dasa fault, Azusa fault, I guess, and then the Arlet that comes down from Imararan, and they intersect in our license, and just sort of off to the side a little is where a key area, and it really confirms what we see in the seismic, and hopefully will enable us to do some really nice drill targeting when that day comes. So, yeah.
Sorry. When do you expect the official results to be out? But yeah, I mean, in this year, in the approximate time frame.
We have to make a decision about whether we want to. Okay, well, I mean, just to be straight, we have to make a decision if we want to spend the money to process the data and et cetera, and present it, because we have limited resources. We have to decide what we're going to do with the cash we have, because Niger is in the middle of its situation. It's not resolved yet. Is it worth spending additional money on anything while there's uncertainty? It may be that it's best to conserve those resources, and then when things are stabilized, then you spend that money. So we're making that. We're actually actively discussing that right now. So the answer is I'm not sure. If there hadn't been a coup, we would have put it out a month later. But as it is, but also not to disparage or put down geophysics, but unfortunately, it's not very interesting to a retail investor. They're pretty maps showing some structures, and I can assure your viewers, it looks like most of the geophysics that you've ever seen. That with this is the fault, and there's some details within it, and it confirms some things and gives us a few new insights. But we're still excited. We've got these great targets really exciting targets down from Dasa, Global Atomics DASA, and I hope one day they can be drilled. And then just above Imararan, squeezed between GoviEx and Orano's, Africa's largest uranium deposit. We're right there at the fault intersection just north of Imararan, and you can imagine we're just sitting here going, God, this would just be so great to be able to do something with that.
And it makes sense to preserve cash until the situation resolves. But in the terms of cash, what is your current position? Do you need to raise money soon?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we're going to have to sooner or later. We like to be really careful with our cash, so we have $400,000 or something like that currently. We spend it really slowly if possible, and so we don't want to be under pressure. Our salaries are low and fees are low, and our incentive compensation is high. So the idea is that we need to make everybody money on their shares, and that's how we're going to make money too. So let's see. But yes, we're going to have to raise money, sooner or later. Yeah.
One thing I'm really curious. Has there been an option maybe to merger with Rush? I know you said you're closely connected with Rush management, and Myriad and Rush are really close connected companies, and the management, and that would, let's say, from a retail view, maybe definitely makes sense. So was this option ever on the table, so to say?
Okay, so Rush and Myriad are close companies. I've known the CEO for many, many years. I really happen to really like their assets. I mentioned Boxy at the beginning. It's their Quebec asset. It was a former Areva asset with really nice niobium numbers. It's an interesting idea. We've certainly talked about it. So one day, and I think that it's especially likely down the road, because if you look at the details of our earn-in to 75%, there'll be reasons down the road potentially to merge, and Rush could, for example, spin out its Quebec asset, and that could be.
That's one of the options.
Yeah, it could create a lot of value for everybody concerned. 1 + 1 is 3 kind of type value by doing that, but that's for the future.
So never say never, right?
Absolutely right. Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. No, it's who knows?
Agreed. One question regarding regarding Wyoming. Do you plan to hire maybe more people, since exploration and development experience in Wyoming, you will need maybe more people? You said you have a member of board that is in Wyoming that knows the place, knows the geology there, but will you need more people to hire for this project?
We certainly will in due course. How quickly, it depends on whether we, for example, find new data and we go through it ourselves first, maybe with some consultants that are local, that really know it. And that is, that's not on the ground work that requires, more people working away there. But as we grow, we will.
Okay.
So,
the final one, and 2-minute answer. What's your take on the current uranium market?
Good one. Well, I think last time we talked, I took it back to the same issue that I focus on. Maybe it's because of I have biases in my own life experience and everything. So your viewers are, a lot of them who follow, you'll understand supply demand, and the new mines are not coming on anytime soon, and everything from spot price to the Sprott flywheel effect and all these other things that are potentially happening. And then you get these new contracts coming up, and Korea is buying more, and et cetera. And China is trying to get a lock on all the new Kazakh production, et cetera, and then physical, physical uranium funds and other, et cetera. All that stuff is really neat, and it's going to lead to, I firmly believe it's going to lead to $100 and some odd dollar uranium, and who knows beyond that. Okay, so that's that. But I also, I've lived and worked in the former Soviet Union and Middle East, et cetera, and different places a lot over the years. And spent a lot of time in China, et cetera. And I have my own feelings about what they're like and what they want and what they're going to do. And I just believe that the Kazakhstan sourced uranium is going to be, and you can see what's happening with Kazatomprom, right? And management and, the Russians coming in and taking over a key project and, and also what's happening with how are Kazatomprom and the Russian, who knows what's going on there. There's lots of things in there behind the scenes that are very complicated. And so what does that mean for the future of Kazakhstan uranium, which of course is a major supplier, and their connection with the Chinese. So you're going to have China and Russia kind of with a grip on Kazakhstan. You can analyze this some multi-layers of the onion, right? On the one hand, the Kazakh government is trying to get away from Russia, but the connections are very strong.
Yeah.
Kazatomprom, is strong links, whether they like it or not, with different parts of the Russian government, security apparatus, / et cetera. So how is this going to go when the West needs uranium and China and Russia have a grip on Kazakhstan? I find that very interesting. Also, getting it out of Kazakhstan, you got to go to the southern route, the Caucasus, you've got Azerbaijan and Armenia, et cetera. It's fascinating stuff. But I think that's going to take, so there's all those other fundamental issues, supply, demand, but then there's that, which I think is extremely interesting.
Yeah, elephant in the room, definitely. Okay, that was Thomas Lamb, Myriad Uranium's CEO. Thomas, thank you for coming to my show and answer all my questions. I wish you luck with both of your projects while advancing them. Thank you very much, Thomas.
Great speaking with you, Lucho, as always.
Thanks.